And now, please come on stage, the moderator for this session, Miss Sylvia Alexandra Sudrajat, Head of Marketing, IDN. Please welcome. Mr. Rohit Pathak, CMO Beauty and Wellbeing, Unilever Indonesia. Miss Marlene Dean, Head of Industry, TikTok, Indonesia. Mr. Pranab Kumar, General Manager, VML.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Oh wow, such a pressure. This is the first session, guys. So we have to bring it all. So semangat all of us. So okay, such a nice campaign you had. So does it win some any award? Of course, it's a award-winning campaign, right? So it was Citra Pariwara, is it? Yeah, if you want to brag, please do. Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, you won silver during Citra Pariwara, is it?
Yeah. So apart from Citra Pariwara, I think this is the most awarded campaign at APAC FEs ever for Indonesia. It won 3 awards at the APAC FEs, right? And apart from that, several Smarties as well at Chitra Pariwara as well. So, yep, it was one of our most awarded campaigns. And I think beyond the awards, it led, to brand growth. Right?
Yep.
I think that's the most interesting part.
The most important
that
thing.
no one expected that a purpose-led or a purposeful campaign, can lead to actual business growth. Right? So I think that's the real win for us.
So thank you for the cue to the next question. So I think that's the moment that you can get after such a long process to prepare this campaign. So let's start the questions. So Rohit, I would like to know, I think all of us want to know, what business challenge was Vaseline trying to solve, and why this is the right moment for the brand to take this approach?
Yeah, so first, thank you for having me, and I'm really glad to represent the work from my team here, so thank you so much. So I would just say first, there is no better time to tell a good story. Yeah? If you have a great story, go ahead and tell it. Vaseline is the market leader in Indonesia, and our job is to grow the market. But at the same time, there is a lot of competition, price-sensitive competition coming us, so we have to continuously win, right? So that's the first job, and that is one of the reasons. But also, Vaseline is also a 150-year-old brand, right? And our purpose is to provide healthy skin for all, so that people can live without limits. And when we saw this story coming through from Gabby, we realized that this is a story that we want to tell. And also from Unilever, we know that when we create inclusive brands, it drives everything. It drives brand power, a purchase intention, credibility, everything. So this was the moment for us to go into this campaign.
Nice. So I caught a very nice keyword there. No right time to tell good stories. It means somehow it's all around us. It's only time for us to bring it to the surface. So I would like to move on to Pranab. What was the key human insight behind the idea? I know it takes almost a year to prepare the campaign. I bet you found a lot of insights. And how did you make sure the strategy stayed commercially disciplined rather than becoming only a purpose-led story? So how did your team and yourself formulate the insights?
That's a very long question. I hope I remember everything you asked me. Right, but I would like to kind of tell an interesting story of how we unearthed the insight behind this whole campaign, right? So I don't know if many people here know that there's something called an albino village, around 4 to 5 hours away from Jakarta, right? So when we were given this brief, we were thinking that, okay, we are offering sun protection, but a premium sun protection. So how do we tell a story in a way that people are, willing to believe that, yes, this is indeed better than everything else that is in the market, and at the same time are willing to, pay more for it, right? So we were like looking at different insights, on how to land this, right? And in the process of that, we realized that, there's a part of the population, almost 0.01%, who suffer from albinism. And they are the ones who need sun protection the most because of, how sensitive their skin is, right? And during that process and the research that we were doing, and just this research part, trust me, took us more than a couple of months, right? And the rigor and the effort that the team put into it, right? So some of us even visited this village, right, which is like 4-5 hours away from Jakarta, right? And tried meeting, although it's technically wrong to call it an albino village because a small part of the population there is albino. But again, we spoke to them. We figured that, the discrimination that they face, the limits that they put on themselves because of their condition, right? And we realized that, okay, this is going to be the basis of our storytelling, right? We have to tell not just a story of how a product is going to help them on a surface level, on their skin, but also how it will enable them to go out and explore life more, right? And so again, the beginning addressed by Shanti, she said how AI is, changing our lives, how it is making things a lot more easier. I can ask ChatGPT today to, in fact, while I was on the way, I asked ChatGPT that, okay, I have this campaign idea of using an albino woman as a brand ambassador of Vaseline. How, what do you think? Is it a good idea? ChatGPT told me it's a 3 out of 10 idea. You should never do it, right? But now we did it, and it was hugely successful for the brand. Now, again, so something like AI can never take up the, or rather never replace the human effort or the human understanding of a particular problem, right? So anyways, going back to, the insight and how we, brought it into the campaign, then came the process of identifying the perfect brand ambassador who represents albinism, but at the same time has a very interesting story to tell. We, through about 2 to 3 months of, I would say scouting, through casting agencies, through scanning TikToks, we somehow landed, on Gabby, right? And she had just like maybe 200 to 300 followers, right? But she wanted to tell her story, right? And that was the most interesting thing we found, right? So we decided that, okay, we have to partner with her, and the brand has to be in the background, and we have to tell, or rather let her tell her story, right? We'll just be enabling her to tell her story, and that would somehow, we believe that it'll feel authentic, it'll feel real, So yeah, kudos to the client teams also who bought into this, crazy idea of ours and kind of let us build this campaign. Yep.
So being real and being genuine nowadays is very, a bit challenging with times like this, especially with the strength of social media lately. So how did TikTok finally support this campaign and make it work? I saw the numbers is very big, in TikTok. Can you please explain, Marlene?
So from the platform side, we see the key success factor that driving this campaign success, especially the Gabby Story and Vaseline campaign, is the authenticity at scale. Authenticity at scale means that the ability of the content to spark the meaningful conversations, organic conversations, and also authentic interactions between content and also the audience. Because on TikTok, we see that people less likely to interact with the brand message or the kind of polished message from the brand, but they are more likely to respond. They are more likely to interact with the relatable and also authentic content that's inspired by their life. So what we see on the platform side on this campaign, it's built the relevance based on the people, not by the brand, because we know that the story that is coming from the people based on their life will spark more relevance compared to the story that maybe we built based on the not based on the real life. So this kind of real example will bring more relevance. So in this campaign, as the Vaseline also convinced that in terms of the value, we can see that Vaseline in this campaign also deliver more value like confidence, right? Also, it's about the freedoms. It's beyond than just the brand message on this part, right? On the relevance. And then the second part is the representations of the campaign. We've seen here that Vaseline used Gaby as the icon, which is very iconic, very rare, right? So people or our audience on TikTok is very interested on this type of campaign that can bring the uniqueness of the story. So by having this kind of hook, by having this kind of story, we can engage more with the audience. And then the third one, it's more into the proof. People tend to people tend to believe on the showing proof, not the telling of the proof. So TikTok very keen, the audience on TikTok is very keen to look for the proof, not just searching on what is the proof. So this campaign can deliver tangibly in terms of the proof, what is the product, and also what is the product can do meaningfully to the audience inside the story. Yeah. So in overall, the real people, the real products, and also the real proof will really drive the impact of the campaign. Yeah.
Because genuinity cannot be seen if there is no proof, right?
Yes.
So that's what TikTok already tried to convey, and finally the people on TikTok, the TikTokers, are finally catching the message correctly. So let's move on the execution part. So another process that we have to go through, how the idea was brought to life, and how media choices help scale it without losing authenticity. So let me ask Rohit first regarding these questions. When bringing the campaign to life, what guardrails were most important to ensure the representation felt authentic, respectful, and credible for the brand? How to...
Yeah, I think, thank you for the question. When you tell these real stories, I think you need to first understand that you have to respect the story and the person whose story it is, truly. And I think that was one of the biggest guidelines that we had as a team as well, is we are going to talk about Gabby and her story and bring it to millions of people. It can't be just a measure of tokenism from the brand that we are putting in and plastering our names all across. And therefore, authenticity becomes one of the most important part of this. There is a thin line between advertising and building that brand purpose with that consumer. And I think we all need to understand, as Marlin was saying and as Pranav was saying as well, is our consumers are very smart. The biggest judge is, as human beings, are they able to grasp that authenticity, or are they able to see an ulterior motive? And they're very, very smart. So we have to be true to ourselves and push ourselves for that authenticity. I think the second thing is about the product itself. Do we even have a solution to answer to her problem or not? And we know, again, that's the part of our authenticity as a brand coming through, is we have a superior product. We have something that can solve her problem. And that is where we brought in the right product. While we put her story at the front stage, our product was at the backstage to help her, to live her life without limits. And then obviously there are factors that now I'm putting my brand hat on and saying there are going to be the distinctive brand assets, the branding has to be in the right place, etc. All that, the look, feel, the premiumness of the brand, everything that goes without saying. I think those are the basics that we have to follow in any case. But I think if I have to say one thing, it is all about that authenticity of bringing a story to life.
So bring the real story and keep it real until the end. I think it's one of the hardest part of this campaign, yeah.
It's very easy for marketers that jump in and say, oh, my placement has to be here.
Yes.
I think you have to hold yourself back and let the story take the front stage.
Yep. But what I caught from your answer just now is back to the product itself. If you find a purpose without support, the real support from the product, it will not giving the proof that the other person will see from the public as well. So I would like to move on to Marlene. So, what is it about TikTok's content environment that can help a campaign like this? And to finally maximize the traction and the impressions and finally the right key message is going to be, catch correctly by the audiences.
Thank you for the question. So, as we know that TikTok is built based on the organic interactions and also behavior. So, people watch the content, people interact with the content, and they also participate on the content, right? So, if the campaign like this successfully on TikTok, like Vaseline did, that meaning that the campaign has established the strong, authentic content at scale that I mentioned before, right? So when the content already successfully established authenticity at scale, the algorithm will run naturally, which means that first, the content will has a ripple effect of engagement. Meaning in here that the content will be served to the audience that is more likely to watch, to share, to like, to comment, and also to participate on the content or campaign. That's the ripple effect, because the algorithm will be automatically set to that audience to reach that audience, right? And then the second one, it's more into the natural response. So when the content already reached to the set of audience that is in the same pool of the audience, and then the second one, it's more into the natural response, which is natural response in here that we can see that the participations of the audience will be sparked towards the content. So the participation, meaning that the people will start to create their versions of the content towards the campaigns, right? So that's, we call it as a natural response. And then the third one, it's not just the natural response and also the ripple effect of the engagement, but the most important, it's whether the campaign is part of the culture and part of the trends. Because if the campaign already being a part of the culture and of the trend, meaning it's not the campaign anymore, it's not be the campaign anymore, it's the culture. Because it can reach more people, more segment of customer, and then wider age, wider segments, persona. So it's more bigger than just a campaign. It's part of the culture. It's part of the trends. Yeah.
So that's one of the most important part from the insights
Yes.
Gathering, finding the culture insights, product insights, brand insights, and also content insights. Very important to finally able to execute the right content and then the right campaign. Yeah. And then talking about content and creative, you know where I'm going to ask. So what were the biggest tensions in the execution? Emotions and product proof, story or scale, purpose or performance, how was it?
I think our biggest tension was whether the clients will buy this idea or not, honestly, right? But again, thankfully, they invested fully their time, efforts, monies behind the campaign. But truth being told, I think the biggest tension was whether we'll be able to land this idea truthfully, right? Whether it'll feel authentic or whether, as Rohit, put it rightly, that whether it'll come across as just simple tokenism, from a big brand, big international brand, right? Trying to get further share in a market like Indonesia, right? So we had to land it right. That was the biggest tension, whether people will believe in a story like this, and especially if you take into context how the category, advertises or how the category speaks in this, in not just here but globally now, right? You have the codes of beauty, which is, influencers, will tell you day in and day out how this product makes their skin, amazing. Then you have, almost lab-like environments where, dermatologists will tell you how certain ingredients in the product help your skin, etc. Again, nothing against those codes, but we were not using any of those codes, and we were trying to tell all of it through the story of one regular girl, right? And not just regular. She was suffering from a condition which meant that she has further less exposure, than even a normal regular girl would have. Right, so that to us was the biggest tension point, right? But again, as Rohit mentioned, that consumers are also very smart nowadays, right? They'll see through, if you're trying to be sneaky, trying to sneak in a brand idea, along with, using someone's special condition, they'll look through it and they'll bash you on social, right? So we had to be careful as well, right? But again, somehow we found the right mix, I'll say. The purpose angle of helping this girl, plus her showing what the product can do in her real life, somewhere kind of helped us land in that right mix of product plus purpose, and that helped us tell this beautiful story of if she can do it, then thousands and millions others can. So I would say that was the biggest challenge and how we kind of overcame it also.
So the biggest challenge was to find the right person, to right persona.
It definitely was. As I said, it took us almost 5 to 6 months to figure out who the right person will be.
Yep. Okay, the bell is ringing already, guys. So I need to. Yeah. Okay. Shanti is like giving. Come on, Sylvia, quick. So moving on to the impact. We believe the process is one thing, execution is one thing, insights is one thing, but of course the impact and the results is going to be the next. So Rohit, of all the campaigns, outcomes, sales, market share, brand power, meaningfulness, or even premium perception, which mattered most internally, and what did it prove to the business?
So I guess all of you saw all the charts going up. As a marketer, obviously, it makes me very happy to see all the charts going up generally. But again, as a marketer, we also need to have some hypotheses and convictions before we go into campaigns. And I think what has proven to me, and I've learned a lot from this campaign, is even in a very price-sensitive market as Indonesia, if you have the right emotional connection and you prove your product superiority very clearly, people are willing to pay the premium for it, right? And it will drive the mind measure. So it's just not that price is the key lever to win. It is about how you create that emotional connect and how do you drive your product superiority to that, and that people pay for. I think that to me has been the biggest learning and output. Rest all thankfully followed, and that proved, I think that's why we are here. So, yeah.
Yes, congratulations for that. Marlene, from the platform side, what signals would tell you that a campaign like this is doing more than generating views, that is actually creating stronger brand connection and meaningful audience response, and which worth the investment?
Okay, thank you for the question. So for the impact, we measure beyond than just the fee if we want to evaluate whether the campaign is success or not. So it's more into the meaningful, and also it's more into the quality interaction, meaningful and quality interaction, beyond than just the numbers and the views. So meaningful and also quality interactions means that are people watching the video until finish? Do they like the contents, comments, right? Do they give their perspective and testimonial towards the campaigns or towards the video on the comments? Or the most important, as I mentioned before, it's more into whether they are participated on the comment or not, on the campaign or not. So if they're building the content by themselves, meaning that's the strongest signals from us. So meaning that the campaign is passed through the audience, evoke their emotions, right? And then drive the actions. Drive the action and hear that they are participating in the campaign, in the content. So that's the strongest signals, the participations, and also the meaningful interactions as I mentioned before. Yeah.
Go and it's connect somehow it will drive the comments and the engagement voluntarily, not even force or anything. Yeah, maybe last question to Pranab. From an agency perspective, what do you believe what the real growth driver behind the results? Is it the emotional storytelling, or is it efficacy proof or cultural relevance?
I honestly think it's, this is a classic case of all those things coming together, right? I think people emotionally resonated with Gabby and her story, right? So it almost gave us the means to kind of meaningfully engage with them, right? Bring them into a conversation that we wanted to have with them, and then the product efficacy kind of convinced them that if this product works for someone like Gabby, it will work for me as well, right? And ultimately, it's also a story of inclusivity. It's a story of empowerment, that somehow resonates in Indonesia, right? Indonesians are always looking for, occasions and stories of other Indonesians where they have, kind of started from small and made it big. And Gabby's story is big simply because when we met her, she had, about a few hundred, 200, 300 followers. And by the end of the campaign, she had more than 25,000 followers on TikTok, right? So through this storytelling, it benefited, her, it benefited the brand, it benefited TikTok also, I believe, because it was one of the first social first campaigns that they were, actively, participating in, working together with the brand and the agency in Indonesia, right? So I think it was fabulous for everyone involved with this campaign. It worked definitely for all of us because, we are still telling her story here, right? So, yeah.
Okay, so I think what I learned from this session is very much about authenticity, genuinity, and also checking on the insights. There is not one part of the insights is more meaningful than the others because it connects one to another, it supports one to another. So I believe that according to this session, we believe that a lot of aspects that can influence the successful of the campaign. So different campaign, different products will create different results as well. So the most important thing is to listen to the insights and to the product itself. So thank you for the session, very insightful. I believe we are going to open for the Q&A session. Yes, so how many questions? Okay, so we have 3 more minutes, so 3 questions, guys, to the respected speakers here. Anyone? I believe all of them will just come to you guys and ask questions personally, maybe.
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm just curious, did this campaign get replicated in another market, a similar campaign in other markets around Asia or globally? Did this get replicated?
Sorry if I hear you well because I couldn't.
Is this campaign only in Indonesia, or you can also
Has
do
it been
in other markets?
replicated?
Yeah. And Pranab, if you want to go, please add on as well. I think, so this campaign specifically was only for Indonesia because this was a story that was coming through in Indonesia, right? I think that was the beauty of it, and that is what Pranab and his team brought to us. Having said that, I think when the brand purpose is very clear and the insight is very clear, I think stories can travel as well. So, and this would be a very great instance of an Indonesian story being translated to at a global stage as well. So I would just say, I think if just to repeat myself, if the brand purpose is clear, the insights are clear, and there is a story to tell, it can travel.
Thank you, Shanti, for the question. Anyone? 2 more? I heard all of them will run after the session, so this is your only chance, guys. Okay, so once again, thank you. Oh, okay.
Okay. So hello, I'm Anggia. So my question would be, because I think this is interesting, right? This is coming a true story from Gabby. So my question would be, if this wasn't Gabby, if this was, a marketing team is making it up, do you think that it will be equally successful? So whether this is something that is tactical, that can be strategic, or it should be crafted strategically from the beginning? I think that's the question. Thank you.
If I understood the question correctly, by the way, it's difficult hearing questions on the stage, right? So if I could hear the question correctly, you're asking if it would have worked if it was not Gabby and someone that we had, like the marketing team had invented, I don't think so it would have been, right? Again, that was a very, one of the options we had considered, when we were trying to make the campaign journey easier for us, okay, why don't we just take a albino influencer, right, and work with her? But then we realized that, no one will believe her. That, imagine an albino influencer telling you, oh, this product works amazingly on my skin, and hence it will work on your skin, right? We have lost the authenticity already. And that's why we searched extensively for the perfect, person who will represent what we wanted to tell. That, this product can empower you to live a life, that you always wanted to, outside, in the sun, right? And who better than a girl who is limited right now? An influencer would be living her life anyways, already. So again, that tinge of authenticity was important. I hope I answered the question.
Okay.
Also, I hope no more questions.
Yeah. The bell is ringing already. I was almost telling you, okay, we're done, guys. Come on. Okay. So once again, thank you so much again, MMA, for having us, having me as well as the moderator. So thank you so much. Such a highly pressured session because it's the first session, guys, of the day. So thank you. I would like to return this session to the MC.